These are about things that really happened. And the same thing with the saints who have gone before us. These were real people who didn't have perfect lives, had lives like ours, and through them determined to live by faith.
Welcome back to Conversation. I'm Emma.
And I'm Ginny. Today we have a special Christmas episode for you.
We have Father John with us again, but today we're going to be talking about Advent and the real St. Nicholas.
And you might even get some ideas for new activities to make the season more meaningful.
Let's talk to Father John.
Father John, welcome back to our podcast. You are officially our first repeat guest.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
For those who haven't been with us for Father John's interviews before, he's our pastor in residence, so to speak, at our podcast. And since he's my husband, didn't have much choice. But he's an Anglican priest serving here in the Charlotte area and going to talk to us about St. Nicholas and Advent today.
That's right.
Yeah, so as we get ready for Christmas, go ahead and tell us a little bit about St. Nicholas.
Yeah, well, first let me just lay the groundwork for the season of Advent that when this podcast is broadcast last Sunday will have been the first Sunday of Advent. So those of you who go to church, and if your church uses colors for the seasons, you may have noticed the colors change to purple or something like that. So the season of Advent is the 4 Sundays before Christmas. It's a season of longing and anticipation, waiting. It's remembering the waiting for Jesus to be born. And for us, it's a season of anticipation and longing for Jesus to return. So St. Nicholas, December 6th, is the feast day of St. Nicholas. And St. Nicholas is where we get the tradition of Santa Claus, because the name Santa Claus is simply St. Nicholas in Dutch.
Wow, that's really interesting. So there really was a Santa Claus.
There was. The real St. Nicholas was Bishop of Myra, which is in modern-day Turkey, and was known particularly for his generosity, and that he did it very quietly. He did it secretly, so no one ever saw him doing these wonderful acts of generosity.
So when did he live exactly?
St. Nicholas lived in the 4th century, and so quite a long time ago. But again, his traditions have spread all over the world, all over Europe, and they're still here in the United States in all kinds of different ways. A lot of Christians and non-Christians, like even in their workplaces, will do a secret Santa. If you've ever heard of those, where people draw people's names and they give them, a secret gift. Well, that's a direct correlation to St. Nicholas, who gave gifts in secret. So there's a sense in which the memory of St. Nicholas is all around us.
Does your family do that, or what are some ways that your family...
Yeah, that's a great question, Emma. So we do. So the night of December the 5th before the 6th, when we've had children in the house, we encourage the children to put their shoes outside their bedroom doors.
Perfect.
And when they wake up, there are small gifts from St. Nicholas for them. And we talk about, again, giving, right? And giving secretly. And so often encourage children to be a little Nicholas and find sort of secret ways to do kind things for other people in the family.
That's really sweet. We never did that in our family, so I love hearing about people who did that.
There are all kinds of traditions. There's a recipe for St. Nicholas cookies. It's an interruption, right, in the waiting and longing of Advent to have a sort of a pre-celebration of Christmas.
So the shoes, is there a tradition about that or about stories about St. Nicholas in particular?
Well, the shoes, I think, is a tradition that is Dutch, that comes from Europe, of course. But there are many legends about Bishop Nicholas's secret giving. One of the most common is that there was a poor widower father in the community who had 3 daughters, and he did not have money for their dowries, and so their future was very bleak. And St. Nicholas is said to have come to their house at night and tossed bags of coins through an open window for the girls' dowries. In fact, that's why even at Aldi in our community, the Aldi grocery store, you can find little knit sacks of gold chocolate coins at this time of the year because it's related to St. Nicholas.
On St. Nicholas Day at our house, we wake up and everybody gets a few of those gold coins of chocolate.
That's right. That's right.
That's so fun to hear about. So obviously there's Christmas Eve, Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Now I'm learning about December 6th. Are there any other dates that are important? Or I kind of joke with my husband, like December 1st is the first day of Christmas and we celebrate every day leading up, just to try to make it not just like a one day thing, but kind of make it like a whole little month.
Yeah.
Good question. So Advent calendars often start on December 1st, and that's a wonderful way that you can count down the days to Christmas. But Christmas is itself a season. There's a reason we sing the 12 days of Christmas, because the season of Christmas goes from Christmas Day until January 6th, which is Epiphany. And so this gets into the church calendar as a whole. We're all familiar with the civil calendar, which we go by because we live in the United States. We have a particular civil calendar that includes everything from Mother's Day and Father's Day to days that remember people that are significant in our nation's history, right? George Washington's birthday, Martin Luther King Day, President's Day, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, Independence Day. And so these are copies, if you will, from the church calendar, which has roots all the way back in the Old Testament when God would teach his people to have feasts and celebrations on an annual basis at particular times of the year so that they would mark and remember and use it as a way to teach their children about the mighty acts of God in history, about God redeeming them from Egypt, and so forth. And so the church calendar is similar. It's a way to mark our days and our weeks, our seasons and our years by remembering the mighty acts of God in history. And the big shape of the church year follows the life of Jesus, of course, from Advent to Easter, because it's about remembering what Christ has done in coming for us and living for us, dying and rising again for us to accomplish our redemption.
So the church calendar starts when?
It starts with the first Sunday of Advent, which when you hear this podcast will have been last Sunday. That's the new year for the church, and again goes through the last Sunday before the first Sunday of Advent, the last Sunday of the season of Pentecost, which is called Christ the King Sunday. So another fun fact about Advent, if you have, say, an Advent wreath, is that the season of Advent comes when the days are the shortest and there's the most darkness in our days. And so the light of the Advent wreath and the lights that we put on our trees and our houses are meant to point to Jesus, right? The light of the world. And so as we move through Advent to Easter, the light around the Advent wreath is growing. More and more light is coming into the world as we prepare for the birth of Jesus.
Do either one of you have any stories to share on whether you've had a Christmas miracle or a tradition or something like that?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I don't know about a miracle, but the tradition, I love doing the Advent wreath, which I didn't grow up doing. But, as children, you like to anticipate. So each Sunday, you light a new candle. So the first Sunday, you light one. The next Sunday of Advent, I have this right, John, you light two. And you explain the rest. So I love that because it marks, excitement towards Christmas.
I don't have a miracle story myself, but I think growing into a liturgical tradition, which I didn't grow up with either, has been such a rich thing for our family and to teach my children about. So I have a fun St. Nicholas story that when my children were little and we started teaching them about St. Nicholas and the idea of being a secret Nicholas and doing secret acts of kindness, my son Sam decided he would get up in the middle of the night and sneak around the house and try to do some kind things for other people in the family. And I can be a pretty light sleeper. And so I woke up and thought, there is someone in my house. And so I literally came out of my bedroom with a baseball bat and found, an 8-year-old Sam sneaking around, scared him to death. I know. And so I got to say, good job. Sorry.
I have kind of a sweet story. Growing up, my mom was a single mom and we didn't have a lot, but she kind of made this decision for us, but we all agreed that we wouldn't really do presents for us, but we would pick a family off the angel tree. And one year we helped this another single mom. And later, the daughter wrote us like this card. We kept it. It's like this thing, a homemade card, and it was such a sweet card. And you don't always get that. We had done that for so many years, and you never get to hear how it impacted them, and you don't do it for that reason. But it was so sweet because so many people don't think about it. It's just a holiday. It's just a fun time of the year. They don't think about the true meaning and what it's about, and hopefully that put a little bit of faith in their hearts.
Absolutely, Emma. And, your family were being little Nicholases. You didn't know that that's the tradition you were stepping into, but that was a great way to honor and learn from Bishop Nicholas of Myra.
Do you make a good point with, the spirit of Christmas being giving because God gave his son to us, right? Is that the beginning of Christmas presents, what the wise men brought?
Well, it is a tradition that comes from them that we give each other presents, remembering at Christmas the incarnation as the greatest gift that God gave us, his son. And then Epiphany is when the wise men arrive to give their gifts, and we celebrate the wise men coming and giving gifts. So it's, again, a whole season of giving. And learning about the liturgical year is not so there's less, right? Celebration and parties, but there's more. There's so much more. And there's something to be learned, right? In our day and age, we don't have much cause for delayed gratification. And so having a season of waiting, I think, is good for us and teaches us, And we talk about it, I know, in our family, right, Ginny, that it seems like all the Christmas decorations are out on November 1st, right after Halloween.
Right.
And again, nobody wants to say we shouldn't enjoy the season and shouldn't celebrate and enjoy our decorations, but we don't want to miss and lose what these things are all about.
I have a question. So, what would you recommend for families with young children? They're growing up with like the idea of like Santa Claus and like
Yeah.
make believe, and like would you say, yeah, that's
Sure.
fine. And maybe like the age of 5, then maybe it's appropriate to tell them, what the true meaning by then. Like when do you kind of have to make that decision?
Well, families have different traditions and do that in different ways. I grew up with Santa Claus, and didn't know the association with St. Nicholas. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think as children grow, it can be an opportunity to move into telling them where these things come from and that it comes from St. Nicholas, and that it's ultimately, Nicholas being a father figure who is generous and kind is leading us to the incarnation where God the Father gives his son for us. But families can do that in different ways. I like teaching people about the real St. Nicholas. Again, not to say don't do things, but to say maybe think about doing more things, right? Think about adding things to our traditions that come from our faith, right? When we think of saints' days, like St. Nicholas is a saint's day, we're certainly not worshiping the saints. It's remembering the heroes of the faith. Again, we have that in the United States. We remember the heroes of our country, like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, all of these heroes of our nation. And we have heroes of the faith that we remember who they were. We learn from their faith. And all of that is to help us grow as disciples of Jesus. But I'd say for families with young children, they can usually do so much more than we think they can. They memorize things so easily and so quickly. Sam was my oldest, and I taught to pray as soon as he could speak. I would pray the words and he would repeat them back to me. There are different songs about Christmas, of course, or things like that we can teach our children to and just involve them as they grow up, because it is really formative, right? These things are shaping them into the people that we want them to be.
Yes, and just talking about St. Nicholas and remembering that his motivation, right, as a bishop in the church was faith, right, was his faith in Jesus.
Yeah, it wasn't, in that sense, it's not about Nicholas, except that he is a model of our faith and a hero of our faith, and he was a real person. So it's another way to say that the facts and the details about Christianity really happened. These are about things that really happened. And the same thing with the saints who have gone before us. These were real people who didn't have perfect lives, had lives like ours, and through them determined to live by faith.
question. So, and this might seem like a silly question, but no questions are silly.
That's right.
That's right.
So, Father John, as a teacher, do you kind of go through the same teachings around this time of year, or can you maybe share with our listeners over the next few weeks what
Yeah.
what you're going to be,
Sure, absolutely. So in the Anglican tradition, a lot of us do follow a lectionary, whether that is the Revised Common Lectionary, which is used by a number of churches and probably most Christians around the world, or we use a modified lectionary in the 2019 Book of Common Prayer. And so I follow those readings, which are on a 3-year cycle.
For those people who aren't familiar with the word lectionary, what does that mean? What are you talking about exactly?
Good question. So a lectionary is just suggested series of readings for each Sunday of the year. The benefit of that is that so much of the church is reading the same scripture passages every Sunday together. And we believe there's benefit to that. So again, the Roman Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, the Episcopal Church, the Lutheran Church, probably most Methodist churches, there are a number of churches and denominations that use a lectionary or a schedule of readings. And it's actually pretty wonderful to think about that most Christians around the world are hearing relatively the same passages every Sunday. It's something pretty wonderful to think about. So the Advent readings, they're not all Christmas readings because we're not to Christmas yet. So they're Advent readings, which is the prophecies about the coming of the Christ. The second Sunday of Advent always includes John the Baptist, and John the Baptist saying, prepare the way of the Lord. So yeah, those are the readings that I'll be speaking from in the Sundays of Advent leading us to Christmas.
I have to admit, I didn't realize that. I guess I learned something new. I was always like, wow, that seems like such a hard job to have come up with this hour-long speech, every single Sunday to just have to pick something. And I guess if you're kind of going off of something, that helps.
And just so your listeners know, I don't preach for an hour. So,
More like 20 minutes, 15 minutes.
That's right, more like 15 or 20 minutes. But yes, there are lots of churches and traditions where the pastor does choose what passage he's going to preach from on Sunday, and he may do that week by week, or he may do the work of creating his own series of sermons. There's nothing wrong with that, but I'm one who's come to see the benefit in families of churches hearing the same scriptures together as a way of uniting the church.
Also a benefit of not speaking for an hour, because by then people aren't retaining the information. They're thinking about the next thing that they're going to do that day or whatever else. I know.
That's right.
It felt like an hour. It was how long it was. But as a kid, it definitely was okay, I don't feel like I'm actually getting this anymore. It just sounds like a lot of talk. So I think just kind of narrowing it down, keeping it short and sweet.
Yeah. We like that. But for listeners who may be thinking about going to church and you haven't been in a while, Advent and Christmas are a wonderful time to go. Find a church and show up. Don't worry about not knowing what to do or what's going to happen. I promise there will be people there who will help you. And my one admonition, to people thinking of doing that is, the thing to listen for is you want Jesus to be the hero of the story. Every time a pastor, a preacher, a priest speaks and explains and interprets the Bible to God's people in worship, Jesus needs to be the hero of the story.
Speaking of that, and going back to Christmas, I thought of a story. We used to have a lot of, we still do, nativity scenes around the house. But they have ones for children. We had one made out of wood, so they couldn't break it. And I'd put it on a low table so they could move the characters around. And so, I had it set up with Jesus, and then you have sort of Mary and Joseph on the side, and then back here are the camels and the wise men, even though they weren't there at that moment. But I came in one day, I think my daughter, Azalea, who's probably 4 or so, had rearranged them all. So the little baby Jesus was in the middle, and all of them were in a circle right around looking at the baby Jesus. And I just thought, that's how it should be, right? That's what everyone is looking at. He's the center. So I thought that was so sweet that in her child's heart, she knew what was the center of Christmas.
Absolutely. Yeah, a nativity scene in your home is also a great teaching tool. And in some families, they sort of build the nativity scene as we go through the weeks of Advent and Christmas. Instead of putting it all out at once, they allow the characters to show up over time.
Oh, that's
All
neat.
kinds of different ways you can use them.
So baby Jesus doesn't appear till
Christmas
Christmas?
Eve, Christmas
We would
Eve,
always
Christmas
do
morning.
a happy birthday, baby Jesus, like Christmas Eve, all growing up. And now that we're older, the grandkids do it. So the four nephews get together and they bake the cake and then they put the little nativity scene up and it's so cute. So baby Grace will get to participate soon. But I
That's
just think it's
right.
fun how we kept a tradition for like 30 years now because my sister's in her 30s and we just always send a happy birthday, baby Jesus. I don't know. I think it's
That's right. Yes. These things aren't just for children, right? They're for adults too.
Right, building those traditions. I still can't get over the fact that you didn't get Christmas presents, Emma. And you that's just so beautiful that your mom had you, especially being a single parent, still put all that money and energy towards.
Yeah, I think we did like the stockings. So we
Yeah.
got like small little stuff. But she said no big gifts, And then later on, her grandmother moved in with us. So, we still got some stuff from her. But she just really wanted us to learn and not be as superficial.
I love that.
Right.
I love
That's
that.
wonderful.
Do you have any ideas, John, of how, like Emma's family, you can shift your focus maybe from the consumerism of, oh, let me send you my gift list from Amazon.
Well, there are churches that do angel trees, with ways to sort of adopt children or needy families. But I would say that one of the best ways is find a church that's open and go on Christmas Eve, go to church and celebrate and worship the birth of Jesus. And even Christmas morning, there are churches that are open and have services. And so that's certainly a way to say, and even if, a larger family is not going, what a witness if your family says it's important to us and we want to go and we want to see you. We want to be with you too. But this is about the birth of Jesus and we worship.
Last December, me and my husband tried to watch a new Christmas movie every night of December leading up to Christmas. And it was so fun. We had a projector. We rearranged like made a little movie theater. And afterwards, my husband was like, that was the most like cherishable Christmas I ever had. Like, of course, we do gifts and stuff. But I try to make it a little bit more meaningful or more memorable. And I was like, I'm just going to stick a bow on my belly for everyone. That's going to be everybody's gift.
That's right.
To think of it in that way, I'm like, oh, we're so happy that God has provided us with this baby. Like thinking about things other than like, oh, I have to give everyone these gifts, but be like, okay, well, what's a little more meaningful when you're doing that? Maybe slip in a little journal or something for Bible study and the presents that you give people.
Or little
Wonderful
coupons.
ideas.
I like coupon gifts, like for a lunch out or something special.
We did those a lot growing
Yeah.
up. My mom still does it for like the boys, my nephews. She'll be like, sleepover at Nana's or something like that. So,
That's a great gift idea.
Doesn't always have to be things, right? It can be experiences, memories.
So as we close, we've talked a lot today about St. Nicholas, and we found some films that we're going to link to on our show notes, some for children, animated, even a documentary about the real St. Nicholas. I didn't know that, but in our research, we found some, so we will link to those. And Advent. So in a sense, tradition, right? There's a lot of this that we would call tradition or ritual liturgy. Why do you think that's important in life? Like Emma is really great at building that into her family. Oh, we should say her baby's due in January. So that's exciting.
Come on Christmas.
Yeah. My brother was born 2 days after Christmas and they sent him home in a stocking. So maybe joke about that. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, just as we're saying, these traditions help us mark time and remember to be thankful for our families and thankful for what God has given us in Jesus. And all of these, right, repeated actions and repeated words are formative. They shape us into the kind of people that we really want to be and that we believe God has called us to be. So I wanted to mention just a couple of resources, and I know you'll put these in the show notes, but there's a wonderful book called To Dance with God, written by Gertrude Nelson. Now, she's from the Orthodox tradition, but there are wonderful suggestions and family ideas for celebrating all of the church year in that book. And then there's a new book called Glad and Golden Hours by Laneir Ivester, which is a beautiful volume that includes everything from how to make an Advent wreath to all kinds of family traditions and recipes. And then for the church year as a whole, Phyllis Tickle wrote a book called The Liturgical Year. So there are a number of resources out there. There's more to learn and more to enjoy and more ways that we can redeem the time.
That's wonderful.
I think everyone should add those books to their Amazon list.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you. Thanks for telling us more about St. Nicholas and Advent. And the season is just starting, so there's lots of opportunity to implement some of these things.
Yeah, I was going to say, I learned a lot, and I feel like there's a lot that I'm not doing that might be fun to incorporate each year. So thank you, Father John.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
We'll
Have
see
me
you
back again.
Bye-bye. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.
Tell others about the podcast.
And for more information on today's guest, check out our show notes.
Until next time.